Did you regret going to the doctor at that point
Yep.
and asking for help?
Yep. And I went dark. I went dark after that, and I stopped going to get help. I had to show them where the safe was, unlock it all, and then they filled out all the forms, counted every single bullet. So I had to count every single one, the magazines, how many rifles. While one officer did that, the other one stood outside like a... The kids were like, "What's going on, Dad? What's going on, Dad?" I'm like, "Oh, it's all right. It's all right." I hadn't spoken to them about my health at that point in my time. I ended up hitting rock bottom, and I was drinking, like I say, a lot, and come down to this one night with my wife, and I'd rather try and fail than never try at all.
I think for a lot of people, it's still quite a sort of taboo subject to talk about, especially publicly.
Yeah.
Hopefully what will come out of this is that it can be talked about, and it should be.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things, like talking about mental health is hard enough as it is for a lot of people, let alone bringing in the concept of firearms. My ultimate goal with everything I'm doing with mental health is to get people back to the support, get the trust back with the authorities, and get the facts put in front of them about the legislation, their rights, what they can and can't do, and how they can mitigate losing their license. It is a very delicate situation, and I see that now. I'm not a professional. I'm not a health practitioner. I don't have answers. I have a lived experience, and I'm living proof that you can get through it. And, I still manage it to this day, and I will manage it until the day that life decides it's all over. I'm not going to make that dumb decision though ever again.
Glenn, thank you for joining me on my podcast. This one's been a long time coming, actually.
Yeah, it has.
And I was actually thinking about it last night, and I listen to a lot of podcasts about mental health, and I digest a lot of content about mental health. And on the flip side of that, I watch a lot of podcasts and digest a lot of content on guns and hunting and all the associated things, but never until you launched your platform, which we'll talk about, had I heard them being talked about together.
Yeah.
And I think this will be an interesting episode, because I think for a lot of people, it's still quite a sort of taboo subject to talk about, especially publicly.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully what will come out of this is that it can be talked about, and it should be.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things, like talking about mental health is hard enough as it is for a lot of people, let alone bringing in the concept of firearms, which is obviously a means of an end. So trying to educate people the safety aspect of what I'm trying to achieve here, and that'll make more sense as we get into the conversation. But yeah, it's really hard, even when it's coming to funding. Like, people don't understand, but the big picture, what we're trying to achieve will actually not only make firearms license holders safer in rural communities, but also the entire country. It's going to make the whole of the community safer with the education we're trying to get out. So
You sent me your some statistics from a survey you did recently, and I found that quite eye-opening, especially a couple of points in that it appears that most firearm owners or licensed firearm owners in New Zealand have at some point struggled with their mental health.
Yeah.
And it's sort of also on the back of that mentioned that most of those people wouldn't talk to the authorities about it, which I assume probably also translates into talking to mental health professionals about it.
Yeah. And you probably noted on that prior to all this, like Christchurch and all this, revocations of licenses, a lot of people said that they had been to health practitioners, but now they won't, and they won't go to the authorities about it. So yeah, a lot of good data in that survey, which for anyone listening, it is going to be public within the next month or so. So you will be able to read it, and it is going to be something we're going to do annually to see what's happening in this space, so we can get a bit of because no one's really working on it. So yeah, it's some really, really interesting information. And I mean, for the first survey to throw out and the amount of engagement that we got was sort of blew me away. I didn't think we'd have too many people engaged. So that alone tells me that this is a topic people want to know about. They may be struggling a little bit to talk about it yet, but that'll take time once we get these conversations out and around through deer stalkers and different clubs and rural communities. So yeah, hopefully we can change the trajectory of the line of what's actually happening at the moment to where we want to see it happen.
Let's start with yourself. For those who don't know who you are, can you give me the sort of umbrella bio of who Glen Thurston is and why I guess your lifestyle has led you to doing what you're doing now, and why for you firearms and being a responsible firearms owner is a really important part of your life.
So I live down here in Wanaka and have done for the last 20 odd years. 20, and we're traveling over here from Aussie for 5 years prior to that. So I've been sort of coming and going for last 25 years in New Zealand. Got 3 daughters. I am in the building industry. At one point in my life, not so long ago, I was high country farming up in Cardrona Valley. And that was, and we'll go into more detail, but that was about the time I had my license revoked through seeking help. And while obviously it's pretty obvious that using a firearms is a necessity to do a job on a rural
Mm,
farm, as well as I got a huge passion in getting out and chasing deer around the hill, pest control, taking my kids out, shooting rabbits. They were just starting to get into it. They were quite young back then, 11 or so. So yeah, it was a really big part of my life, using the firearms in work life and in personal life. So after work, I'd quite often go out, or we'd try and go out spotlighting as much as we could. Or like I said, the kids were only just getting into it, so it was but they were really getting into it. They were loving it. So yeah.
yeah, so it's just it's a tool of the trade, but it's also something that's just a facet of your everyday life.
Yeah, we're
It's
living down here in Wanaka. We're surrounded by the mountains. It's a big tradie community, so most of the communities, there's hardly anyone you'd not know that's not in the trades, and majority of those tradies are firearms license holders and love hunting. It's a way of
mm,
life down here, and obviously in a lot of places in the south. So yeah, it just goes hand in hand. Even though I'm back on the tools, it's, you know, I'm always thinking of the next trip. What am I going to do this weekend? Can I take the kids away this weekend? What's the weather doing? So yeah, it is a big part of my life. Going out for a hike up a hill is something that I quite often do too. But there's nothing better than being able to bring home a heap of meat for the freezer for the family, and tell the story of how it all unfolded. And like getting out in the hills walking is great. I love it, but and it's very relaxing. Hunting, on the other hand, is meditation, and I always say this: like when you're in that moment of a hunt and you're honing in on that deer, you're worrying about your breath. And when you're about to pull the trigger, you're worrying about your breathing. You're worrying about your step, the noise you make. You are in that moment. Nothing else matters. You don't think about anything else, and it doesn't matter what anyone says. There's not a bad thing in your life that you're going to think about while you're in the moment of that chase of that deer or that jammy tail or whatever it is you're after. So it is 100% meditation, and it's been scientifically proven that getting in the outdoors is beneficial to your mental health. So I can understand why so many people use it for that without even realizing it, half of them.
every guest I've had on this podcast so far, even those who have no interest or experience with hunting, have all mentioned that when it comes to their own mental health, that nature, being outside, a lot of them mention the beach and the ocean is just one of the most healing things for them.
Yeah,
Um, and just touching on your point about, the hunting side of it, it's almost impossible to not be 100% present and mindful in those moments. You're not distracted by your phone, you're not distracted by what's going on at work. It's, I mean, if you want to have a successful hunt, right?
exactly. You're going to turn your phone to airplane mode
Yeah, yeah,
pretty
yeah,
quick
yeah, yeah.
for many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you touched on a point about the ocean, how healing it is, and I was actually brought up around the ocean, and that was always my go-to. I worked on the ocean for a wee while when I was in Aussie, and
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. And when I moved to Wanaka, I loved the mountains, but I used to get what I call mountain phobia, and it's like, oh, I have to get to the west coast. I need to see the ocean. So Jen
Yeah.
and I'd go for a long drive, and we'd just go and sit at the ocean just for the hell of it, just to smell the salt air. it's sort of been here long enough now that I don't have those cravings as bad. I love getting to the ocean, but I love getting in the mountains. I crave to get in the mountains now. My I don't know what's changed, but just being around that, I get the same buzz from getting a bit of altitude in the mountains and just sitting on a nice rock looking out over a beautiful valley. Just getting that bit of altitude just does such wonders for me. Same as when I used to look out of the ocean. Yeah, it's unreal.
It's probably like you were saying in Wanaka, the density of the people in the trades who are also very much into hunting, or at least the outdoors. Like, it's one of the big pulls for living down there, right?
Yeah.
It's like in Auckland on a sunny day, if you go to any boat ramp or marina, the whole car park is trader utes with empty boat trailers. And that's their sort of escape up here, especially for the people that own their own businesses. When that weather does come around, or that good weather window, or that good day,
Yeah.
that's their way of getting out and getting some time away from work, probably away from the family, just having a break with them and their friends. I'm sure some of them do take their families, but I can imagine down there it's a similar sort of thing, but from the hunting perspective.
Yeah, definitely 100%. You know, a lot of people have property over on the West Coast as well, so they'll scoot over there, or and a lot of people here have boats too, so they'll scoot out in the lake and take the kids out biscuiting or wakeboarding or whatever, and camp out on the other side of the lake. It's definitely a way of life. There's a cultural thing for sure.
And you're a father, right?
Yeah, I got 3 daughters, a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 14-year-old. All
And
daughters.
so you're pretty outnumbered in your household.
100%. And I got 2 bitches, 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So I'm well
Okay, so you're
outnumbered.
very outnumbered. You're very outnumbered.
Always have been.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a cultural shock for me because I grew up with 2 brothers, so don't have any sisters. So to go from boys to girls.
Yeah.
It's a different way of
And
life.
are they into hunting and the outdoors and that sort of stuff as well?
Yeah, definitely. Brianna's my oldest. She's moved to Christchurch these days. So she's settling in the city life up there. But yeah, she's always saying she wants to come out and go hunting, so I'm going to get her out. But the other 2 still being here, yeah, definitely keen to get out as much as they can. I mean, I took them out the other week. We flew up to the Alberburn and tried to get them onto a deer, but we didn't have any luck. But it was a hell of a weekend. Had a great time. So they're definitely in the outdoors and skiing. The youngest loves the skiing, so she's been doing a bit of that. Yeah, we don't push any of that on them. There's a lot of people that really try and get their kids up there every weekend. Like Tash is right into it. The other daughters could take it or leave it, and so it's there's a real mixed bag between the 3 girls, but it's all pretty outdoory for sure.
Yeah, it'd be hard not to living down there, right?
They got a good program at school too with what they call outdoor pursuits, and my eldest is in that, and every week they'll do rock climbing, kayaking, skiing. They'll go build snow caves and sleep in them and different things like that. Just all outdoor experiences. She's about to do some mountaineering program because she didn't want to do the skiing. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity down here for that sort of thing, which is good.
Yeah, and that's good for them at their age, I think. Like, I did Cubs and Scouts when I was younger, and
Yeah, me too.
I think that built probably, and it's none of that would have been to the extent of some of the stuff your children are doing down there, but it definitely builds confidence and stuff like that. I've got a friend actually who I will have as a guest on the podcast who runs an outdoor program for kids, and it's solely based around teaching them resilience and stuff like that using the outdoors.
Yeah, it was definitely a big part of permanently shifting here, like for the kids' future as they got through. There was opportunities in that outdoor, as opposed to where I live. I grew up in the middle of Sydney, so yeah, there was none of that.
Interesting. Okay.
Originally, we moved to Adelaide when I was 13, and then moved over here 20 years ago. So majority of my life's been spent here.
And you actually owned a CrossFit gym, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So I was in the building, and I found fitness was something that would keep me on the straight and narrow. Again, my way of meditating. I used to love going and getting a hardcore sweat up, and sort of fell in love with CrossFit. There was no CrossFit in Wanaka, but I started Googling online and getting programs, and then I went and certified, got some training. Then I got people interested and started coaching a few people, then it grew, and then I looked into affiliation, and then I found a space and got a few members to pay the rent, and we were just playing around in there. Then then it just grew. It took off. The next minute I had more members I could handle. I shifted gyms to a bigger space, and it actually, really became quite successful really fast. CrossFit's one of those sports that's a fad, and it was right at the prime of it when I did that, and it took off like I couldn't handle, so to speak.
It swept the CrossFit sort of wave swept through New Zealand pretty quickly. I remember one day I heard about it, and the next day everyone was doing it.
Yeah, and it is still around. It's not to where it was, but I mean, I was still building when I set that up. So I'd just go in, do a morning session, go building in the afternoon, coach some people, and then as it grew, I'd open up another session. And I was really lucky with the guy I was building with it. He was like, "Yeah, let's just make it work." And eventually, I broke my collarbone actually, and
Doing CrossFit?
No.
Oh,
Fell off a bicycle.
oh no.
Yeah. I'd like to say I was doing a big jump, but I was playing around on a kid's bike.
Oh no.
So I said, I was off work. I was off on ACC. I said, right, I'm at that tipping point. So I said, let's just call it on the tools, and I will just drive the CrossFit. And it took off. I managed to make it a full-time gig. So I did that for 3 years. And that was about the point. The third year into it, I was struggling. I was doing too much on my own, wasn't getting the support. I struggled to ask for help to support me financially. I wasn't doing majorly well. There's a lot of overheads with the gym. People think if you have a gym, you're going to make cream it, but no. So and I at that stage then I was drinking. I don't drink anymore, but I was drinking, and I was very social, always have been through the building industry, and I was burning out real quick with the gym. I was just eat, sleep, drink, repeat, CrossFit, and I was just doing my head in the end. I was like, I don't want to see CrossFit anymore. I'm sick of programming. I'm sick of this. But I loved working with the people. I'd love going in and training, but it was the business management and the business control, knowing I was at a point where I could really take it to the next level, or it was either that or walk away. So essentially I sold up. I ended up hitting rock bottom, and I was drinking, like I say, a lot, and come down to this one night with my wife, and it wasn't good. And I think I got to take a step back, because when I was 18, back living in Aussie, I did have an attempt on taking my life, and I never really managed it properly from that day on. I got a little bit of support through counselling and refused any medication and got on with life. I'll come back to where we are now. So keeping that in mind, I'd started this gym. We'd started a whole new life over here. Things were going well, and I've got this really weird way of self-sabotaging. So when things go good, there's a lot of self-doubt, self-hate, and so the only way to get rid of that thoughts about CrossFit or everything that's going on was to drink alcohol, and I would turn everything off. But then it'd get to a point where I would just be a mess. I'd get to the emotional side of it, and couldn't get any clarity in my day. So this particular night I hit rock bottom, and I'm so glad my wife came out to the kitchen this particular night, because I'd pretty much clocked out. I didn't have a plan or anything, but I just knew I was ready to make a really bad decision. What that was or what it looked like, I don't know. But I woke up the next morning, swore to her that I was going to stop drinking. Not that she ever said, you need to stop drinking, but we knew I was drinking too much. And she sort of went, whatever. And just to look in her face, I thought, no, this is it. I can't do this anymore. I've got kids growing up. I've got to be a role model. I was an emotional wreck. And so I booked myself into the GP for the first time, and just basically broke down with her for about half an hour. She was really good. She helped me through that stage and referred me through to brief intervention, which was great. It was all government funded, and the lady I was dealing with there, she was amazing. And I think it was about second or third session we started talking about medication, and I was like, well, you know what? The way I'm looking at it right now is I can refuse it all I like, but because I didn't like the idea of medication in case it screwed me over. Well, I was already screwed over, so I was like, I'm at the end of the road, so just chuck it at me, see what happens. And lo and behold, it was the best thing I ever did. And I wish I'd done it
Yeah.
a lot earlier, because I've lived my life with a suicidal ideation in the back of my mind all the time, especially when things were going good or things were going really bad. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have bad things going on in your life to feel like that. The pressures of good things overwhelm you, like, far out, I'm not good enough for this. So yeah, all those thoughts disappeared, and I'm still on that medication to this day, and I don't have those feelings. It doesn't mean I don't get depressed, doesn't mean I don't have bad days. I
Yep.
just don't. It's taken that edge off, so I can actually get some clarity and see where I need to go in life. So yeah, so that was good. Best thing I ever did. I sold the business at that point. I put it on the market, sold the business, and it wasn't until the sale of the gym that I actually put some money in the bank. I think in the 3 years I was there,
It's
I
often the
actually
way. Yeah.
3 years I was in the gym, I think that was the first day I actually got a decent wage and got on top of debt, and it was like, yeah. So, and from that moment there, I got given an opportunity to move out to a cottage out on the farm from one of the members, and they actually owned the farm. And through that period of living there and just working in the proving grounds, I ended up getting offered a job on the farm, which was unreal opportunity for me. And yeah, it really was the best thing I ever did, because I needed to get out of town. I needed to get away
Yep.
from people. Just while I was healing, getting off the booze, I needed to become a recluse. Although it's not healthy to be away from people, at that moment I was getting social anxiety. I went from being this real social guy to, working with people every day, to just couldn't even be around them, couldn't even talk to people, and I needed to just find myself again.
And were you still drinking then?
No, that as of that night with my wife, I stopped drinking. That was 8.5.
Gotcha.
That was 8.5 years ago now. Yeah. Well, Labor weekend this year will be 9 years. Yeah.
Can I jump in with two quick questions, just taking a step back?
Yeah.
The first one going back to, I think you said you were 18 when you were in Aussie still, and you sort of had that first attempt at taking your life, I guess. You said after that you had a bit of support and I guess sort of carried on, and obviously it came up again later in life. If you could go back to that 18-year-old, is there anything you would have done differently in regards to processing that event? Or you, at the time, obviously you were doing the best of what you had and what you knew, but with what you know now, looking back to, or I guess advice for any person in their late teens who's been through an event like that or looking down that road, is there any sort of wisdom or insights you could impart for someone in that position?
I think I would have been, if I could be a different me then, I would be a lot more open-minded to the suggestions rather than being pig-headed and thinking I know better. I refused medication, and yet I'd walk out of there and go and get a beer.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, okay.
so who am I to say I know more than the medical profession, and yet I'd go and self-medicate with drugs and alcohol, and
And I
a
guess that's a
lot of
good
teenagers probably do the same thing. So, if you're refusing medication, have a really good reason for it. And I did have a good reason for it, but due to what medication and depression had done to my father, it is in our
Yep.
family history. But I was very shut off to, no, that's my decision. You're not ever going to change me. The more you try and change me, I'm not going to listen. So,
And I think that's for, for someone in their late teens, most of them think they know better. I did. I thought, and it wasn't in this regard, but in regard to work and life and
Mm.
partners and that, I always thought I knew better. But I think that's quite a good point to make, is just being a little bit more open-minded. And I think it's quite typical, especially in New Zealand, for someone of that age to be drinking like quite a bit. I did, my friends did, but I guess being aware enough to notice, are you doing it to mask something you're feeling that's maybe not that great?
exactly. And I mean, bear in mind, this was 28 years ago. So medications have come a long way. So if
Yeah,
anyone
they
is in
have.
that situation now seeking counseling, things are 100% better than they were. And sure, there's always room for improvement, but I 100% know so many people that are on medication, and it's a positive thing. I don't see it as a negative anymore. And I say to people, if I do get some people say, "Oh, yeah, but the side effects of this was that, and the other." It's like, there's more than one medication, keep
Yep.
talking with your doctor, play around with it, do it right, don't just drop your medication, because that's going to put your head in a real spin. Do the right things, wean off it, work on to the next process, or upping your doses or whatever. Find the balance for you, because none of us are built the same. So the doctor's just throwing a bit of a dart at it based on what we're talking about. So yeah, I do recommend getting on medication if it is offered to you. And sometimes it's just a short-term thing. For me, I've decided, and with talking to my doctor, I'm going to have it for the rest of my life, and I don't care anymore. So one pill, 20
Yeah.
milligrams of fluoxetine for the rest of my life. Who cares?
Yep. And it's another good, I guess, argument for being as open and honest as you possibly can with your doctor, because they can't help you if you're not telling them everything, or
Yeah,
eh, they can help you better if they've got the full picture.
yeah,
Whether that's medication or therapy or anything else, or in a lot of cases, I know through my own experiences, it's a combination of both, very similar to you.
yeah.
Um, a long time ago in my late teens, I took antidepressants, and for a short period of time to get through a very hard part of life. And over the years, I've taken different ones again to get through hard parts of life. And
Mm,
I used to feel ashamed of it, I guess, or sort of broken about it. But now, like you say, things are so different. The medication's different. It's better. There's so many more options, and even GPs now are so much more open-minded and knowledgeable about it.
yeah.
You don't always have to go to a really expensive, hard to get into
Mm.
psychiatrist.
And sometimes people don't even need any depressants, they just need a good sleep. So just being prescribed a few sleeping pills, not I know there's a lot of risk with sleeping pills, but take them over a week, get your body clock back in order, get things cycling properly, get that good rest, and you might just start getting some clarity in the way you're thinking. And I've heard of people that have just done that. No antidepressants. It's
Yep.
just been enough to get that rest so they can digest what's going through their mind and they can work through it. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for medication. There's a lot of anti-medications, especially since COVID. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm 100% behind it myself. I was real lucky. The one they put me on first up worked straight away,
Yep.
same dose.
Yep.
At one point there, I had a bit of a downturn, and she upped it to 2 pills. It actually made me worse, and I realized it real quick. You know, so yeah, I dropped back down to one really quick, and it's all I need.
Again, it's the importance of working with your doctor, I think, because in some cases you get lucky, but in a lot of cases it does take trial and error and finding the specific one and the dosage that works for you.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
my next question, just as we took a step back, was you mentioned when things started to flare up for you again, when you were running the CrossFit gym, you actually noted there that you'd spent too much time alone, not got enough support. Same question for that. If you were to do it over again, I mean, you're obviously running a new business now, right? And from what I can see, you've got support and people around you and sponsors and all that good stuff. Is it mentally better this time round? You're obviously aware that the first time you ran the business, the CrossFit gym, you didn't have enough people around you or enough support, and that really added to the suffering.
Yeah, I've definitely bringing people in to support me and
Yep.
asking a lot more questions. Um, yeah, I don't know. I tried to bring people in, but I didn't do it very well. And I was just learning the
This
whole.
is the CrossFit gym?
Yeah, yeah. And I did have some people help me, but it's just probably not the right people. I wasn't asking properly. I was doing it wrong. I was doing contra deals. You get free membership, and because I was
Yeah,
struggling, and it was just
that
like you
adds
don't
up, hey?
really get the right help when you're doing things like that. So sometimes you just got to invest. I probably should have gone to the bank and said, right, I need this. Let's do this, and I would have been away. But I was just too pig-headed in my ways, and yeah, younger. Wasn't that long ago.
Well, again, you only know what you know, right?
Exactly.
And it was taking off fast, so it was probably quite a whirlwind for you at that time.
Yeah, it'd be a problem if I was going into what I'm doing now and doing the same shit.
Yes. Yep. Well, that's what I was getting at, right? Like, you've obviously learned to do something really well, you can't do everything yourself. And it's something I've learned in business. Like we've talked about this before on the phone. Like it is so stressful trying to build something meaningful that's also successful, that also pays the bills and all that stuff. And it is
Yeah.
just trying to do it on your own is so overwhelming.
There's still a lot of self-doubt in what I'm doing right now. But I manage it way better, and there's way more positives that I push through my brain to keep me going. And a lot of people come to me that make me realize, yeah, I got to keep ticking away at this. So yeah, I've created a monster with this one, and I love it, and I really enjoy it, and I enjoy where it's going and how it is having a positive impact on a lot of people. So
Mm.
yeah,
And I'm excited to definitely dive into that.
yeah.
So just fast forwarding back, 2019, right? You're working on the station, the High Country Farm.
Yeah, so that point we spoke about then when I did hit rock bottom, got help, was back in 2016. It was a great experience with the mental health service. Got all the support I needed. My GP was amazing. Brief intervention was amazing, and got on that medication, no problem. Like you say, 2019, I was on the farm. Life was great. I was enjoying. I bounced out of bed with a spring every day. I was like, yes, we're going mustering. Yes, we're drenching sheep all day. Can't wait. Everything about the farm. I was learning so much. I was in tractors. We were doing, raking hay, baling hay, feeding out. I was working with deer, cattle, sheep. It was really cool experience. And I'd love to do it again one day in my life, even if it's just semi-retire and shifting K lines or something. I got to a point while I was on the farm that, bearing in mind, I'd stopped drinking. I wasn't on the booze, and I'm still off the booze. And I started having this thought in my head that I didn't need the medication. So I started thinking, maybe it was just the fact that I stopped drinking that I feel so good, and I don't need this pill. It was a real balance in my brain that I just couldn't cope with. So I actually went back to the doctor and asked the question and spoke to her about it. And she said, well, the only way we're going to find out is if you actually get off the medication and see what happens. And I said, well, how about we have a go? So over a period of about 2 to 3 months, I weaned off the medication with her. And it was a slow process, did everything correct. I didn't just drop it. In that time, we went on a family holiday to Rarotonga. Kids had a ball. We had a great time. And then back on the farm working, and things started getting dark. It started getting distorted. Um, I was on that medication. Bear in mind, before that, I'd never felt good before. So
Yeah.
I'd always had these dark thoughts. And it was just the way I lived. So having felt good, I realized real quick when I started feeling shit. And I can
Yeah.
see it
Yeah.
now when things are going downhill, and I need to get a hold of it, where I couldn't see that before. So yeah, it got dark, and I did start having a few, I don't want to be here. I don't want to, who am I? I hate myself. All this self-hate and all these suicidal feelings again. But I didn't drink alcohol then, so I had no release, and it was just a whole heap of different frustrations for me. So I spoke to my wife. I said, nah, this is not, because she obviously, we're going through it together. And and she goes, well, we just go back to the doctor and see what she says. So I went back, and yeah, she was great again. She goes, cool, well, at least we know. And I said,
Yeah.
well, you know, let's just go back on the meds. And she goes, so we'll get it back on track. And how about in the meantime, just while you're having this shitty moment, we'll just put you through to mental health services, just so you're not left fighting this on your own to get through. I said, cool. Last time was a great experience with brief intervention. So mental health services, I thought, yes, sweet, just someone to talk to. So yeah, so that's what I did. And about this moment coming up is where mental health started to evolve. I went into the
Yeah.
mental health services, and bearing in mind we're in October 2019, and remembering Christchurch mosque shooting happened in March 2019.
I was just going to say, so this is now post the Christchurch attack,
Yeah,
right?
with all the
Yeah.
rigmarole that went with that. So I went in just like I did the last time. He asked a few questions. I was open and honest, and is one of the first sort of questions is, are you feeling suicidal? I said, well, I'm having that feeling again. Yeah, I don't want to be here. That's why I've come back, to get back on my medication. He knew the situation. We tried to get off it, get on it. And then his next question was, do you own a firearms license? And I was just like, what? What? Since when's that ever been? What the hell's that got to do with anything?
Were you ever asked that before?
No, that's the
In
funny
your
thing. When I was literally knocking on death's door and feeling like, I was ready to go back then, never got asked that at all, and got the help I needed and got on with my life. And that's the most important thing for anyone, getting that support to get through those sticky times, because they don't last forever. But sometimes you just need a leg up to get through it. And I got that then. But this time when that happened, as soon as that happened, that pretty much ended the meeting. I said to him, "No, sorry, fuck this. I'm out of here. You're not going to, you can't take my gun. I need my license for work. It's not, I can see where you're going with this." He goes, "Oh, unfortunately by law, I have to do this." I'm like, "What are you talking about by law? I'm not thinking about my firearms. It's not even an option to me." What he didn't ask me is, do I want to live? Because the answer to that was yes. That's why I was in that room. That's why anyone goes into a room to see a counselor, is because they want to continue living and not feel the way they're feeling. It, it doesn't mean they're going to go and take their life. That's why they're there, because of that feeling, and the demons they're dealing with. So anyway, we packed up. I said, "I'm going down to the police station too. They can get stuff. I'm going to tell them they can get Nick," because I knew he was going to report it.
Yeah.
Anyway, he packed up as well, and he come down to the police station with me right that moment. Packed his laptop up, and we met down at the police station, and sat down with the officer and had a yarn. And they ended up talking me around and going, "Oh, it'll all be fine. It's just a protocol we've got to now do, and we'll have to, suspend your license while pending revocation, but you'll have a chat to the inspector, and it'll be fine. He's a great guy." And I was like, "Righto." I said, "Cool. Well, the kids are at home at the moment, so they're back at school tomorrow. Can we, come out tomorrow?" And, "Oh, no, we have to do it now." I said, "What?" So I said, "Well, I've got shit to do in town before I leave to go home." He goes, "Well, how about you just ring us before you head home and we'll come out and collect." I said, "Okay." So anyway, I did my stuff. I was driving down the road and I rang them. And as I rang them, I literally drove past them. They waited on the side of the road down the valley, and they tucked in behind me and drove up the driveway, but right behind me, and I had to show them where the safe was, unlock it all. And then they filled out all the forms, counted every single bullet. I had a box of 22 bullets. They had to count every single one, the magazines, how many rifles. While one officer did that, the other one stood outside like a security. And what I went to the doctor feeling to what I felt then was tenfold worse than I felt in 2016. I felt like when they left, I felt like walking out and standing in front of a truck. I thought, this is just the most horrendous feeling I've ever had in my life. My kids were like, "What's going on, Dad? What's going on, Dad?" I'm like, "Oh, it's all right. It's all right." I hadn't spoken to them about my health at that point in my time. They didn't know anything was going on in my mental health state. So I guess a positive out of all this, it's given me a chance to open up, and we are 100% transparent in our house now. But I hadn't spoken to them, so trying to explain to the kids why my guns were getting taken away, and I just says, "Oh, it's because of the new law in Christchurch," because everyone knew what was going on with Christchurch, and everything was a shit show with guns. So they just thought it was they were doing it with everybody, not just me. So with that, they took off, and they kept turning up at my house with a police car to serve me a notice. I'm like,
So these were uniformed officers in a marked car?
And I said, "Stop turning up to my house. Stop coming to me. Ring me. I will come and collect whatever it is piece of paper you need. This is hard enough as it is without that." Obviously, I needed to let my employer know. Anyway, we went through the process with the police, and I went and had my 15-minute chat so the guy could determine whether I'm fit and proper, because you can figure that out in 15 minutes, apparently. He rang me a few days later. He says, "Look, I'm going on holidays. When I get back, I'll get back to you with the answers." So my life was in limbo I'd completely forgotten about healing myself and was in complete defense mode and fight mode with organizations and government and police, and just like, I was being very polite about the whole situation. I was never aggressive in any way. And then he rings me after he gets back, and he says, "Okay, so I've made the decision." And I honestly thought he was going to go, "Yeah, you've made some good decisions." He said, "No, I'm decided I will revoke your license." And I'm like, "Really? On what grounds?" My whole day and my whole life just got flipped. I was like, "What the hell am I going to do now? How the hell am I going to work?" Like I say, my daughter was just getting right into shooting rabbits. We were going out most nights, and that just completely stopped. So yeah, they couldn't use firearms for a long time. Because I had then been revoked, I then cannot be around firearms at all. You tried
So you
farming with
can't even shoot supervised?
no, absolutely not. If you have a license revoked, you cannot shoot. You cannot be around anyone with a firearms or be near a firearm. I couldn't even go out spotlighting with my boss, take my kids. If the kids wanted to go shooting, I'd have to make someone else take them. It was like I was the biggest criminal, all for doing the right thing. So I knew deep down that everything I did was right by the book, and the card I got dealt was so wrong in every level. And
Yeah.
anyone with half a brain can figure that out. Even a 10-year-old kid could see how unfairly treated I was. So I
Do you still think it was wrong and unfair,
100%.
the way they did it then?
Yep, it was just bashfully done. There's a few factors in it from the actual inspector that he had his own personal morals, and that's not how it should be dealt. Whatever his personal feelings are on situations he's dealt with in the past shouldn't have anything to do with my situation. You should be dealing it on a case by case. And yeah, I got 100% got dealt the unfair card because no one, they got thrown this stuff by the government and no one knew what the real rules was. And the stories I was starting to get from region to region, police department to police department was all inconsistent. There was no structure. What happened to him and what happened to me and in a similar situation was so wrong.
So it was happening to other people that you were hearing about at the time?
Initially, I hadn't heard. So what happened to me is I had to go quiet because I knew if I started telling, because everyone I knew had a firearms, I thought if I start telling people what's now happened, because I'd already been open about my mental health because I sold the gym. And I thought, shit, if I tell people this, they're not going to I'm going to stop them from getting help.
Yeah.
And I felt like I would
Yep.
be their burden. So I thought, no, I can't do this. This needs to stay quiet. But then as time went on, I started seeing stuff on the internet and I was like, shit, that needs to stop. People can't say that because that's going to stop people getting help. But I thought, well, why would they get help if they're going to get? So I pretty much swore to my wife. I said, right, I'm going to do everything right here. I'm going to do everything on my power to get my license back. And I'm going to flip up every single phone book until I find the answers from the right person to find a way to fix this. I'm going to hit every government official I can find. So yeah, it took 2 years. Oh, actually, I was very lucky, because there was no timeline. He said no. I said, when can I get it back? Never told me. There was no 5-year revocation like there is now. It was just, you've lost your license. And I was like, shit. I kept going. I kept ringing him. He ended up answering my calls. I then went to the police station and asked them. I said, what do I do? Like, if he's not answering, who do I contact? Who's the person I deal with? You guys are dealing with this. You're the police. You're the arms people. And they looked into a few things. And then I went back to a psychiatrist, not for any reason other than to say, what do I need to do? I got letters of clearance and everything saying that I was fit and proper and I lost it. What do I need to do? She goes, oh, this particular officer had been doing it to a few people. So she wrote him a letter and he replied with, Glenn is welcome to apply for his license at any time down through the usual avenues. I'm like, well, how? Would have been nice to have been told this. So I said, sweet. So I started. That was only a year into it. So I started the process and I went to the police station and I told him everything. And she's like, well, we're going to help you because you've been dealt an unfair card. And so they said, we won't get the vetters onto you. We'll do all the vetting because we want to make this bit more thorough for you through the organization. And so I did that. And then I had to do the mountain safety course again because it had been revoked. Okay, so obviously you got
Oh, so you have to go through the whole process again.
Yeah. Bear in mind, I just renewed my license before this had all happened. So I just had it all renewed successfully. Oh yeah, I had to do the mountain safety course again and I obviously got 100%, no problems at all. It took 12 months from that moment to get my license. And would you believe in that period, I heard nothing, and then just appears in the mail. It just turned up in my mail and I went, what the actual fuck? Like, so I said, what does this mean? Can I go get my firearms from my boss? Can I now go buy ammo? I'm obviously a license. Obviously I can get on with my merry old way. No one come to me. No one handed it to me. No one sent me a letter saying, now, this is what you've been through with your mental health. No one questioned anything. It just turns up. It's like, what a crock of shit.
When I went through the process, it was all done directly with the police. The course was at the police station. The arms officer that came to my house was directly from the police. We're going to talk about this more, but the Firearms Safety Authority, which is my understanding, they now oversee and regulate all of this. Did they exist back when this happened to you? And what
No,
they didn't
they
exist
didn't
then?
exist at all, and it was all done through the
Okay.
police. So anyone listening to this, please understand that what I went through is not and should not be happening now. It dealt way differently. So we'll go into that in a minute. And that's
Yeah, and
where we're at.
that was a point I was going to make sure we covered, that
Yeah,
now it's all done through the Firearms Safety Authority, isn't it?
yeah. So it is 100%. So my story, I could have, from that moment, turned into a hate the police, hate the government, hate everybody. I'm going to start a Facebook page with the corruption cause and try and pin everything on everybody and blame everybody. But I realized it was bigger than that. The fact that I had to hand my firearms to my employer to store, well, I knew straight away, being a landowner, farmer, I knew straight away he was never ever going to go get help because of the shit that I'd just been through. So
Yeah.
I felt responsible for not allowing him to get help. So I knew I needed to change the system somehow, or make some noise about this. But I was very scared because it could have gone one of two ways. It could have stopped everyone getting help, or it could have got
Mm.
people getting help. So I made millions of phone calls. Like, I couldn't even tell you how many. I rang MPs, I rang mental health navigators. I was trying to talk to. I did a lot of mental health courses of my own, and while I was at them, I'd mention it. They'd be, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." No one really knew anything about it, other than us victims that have been treated unfairly, thanks to this idiot in Christchurch and Mrs. Ardern.
Do you think, or was there a part of you at the time that maybe understood why they did what they did? It was on the back of a really bad event. They probably were still learning as they went, getting past stuff from the government. Was there ever a party that thought, I kind of get it, or was it always this is just not right?
Based on my situation of what I was doing and managing everything correctly with my doctor, no, it was 100% wrong.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no
Yeah.
reason for revocation for me.
Did you regret going to the doctor at that point
Yep,
and asking for help?
yep. And I
Yeah.
went
And
dark.
that's
I went
dangerous.
dark
Like
after that,
that.
and
Yeah.
I I stopped going to get help, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really struggled to get through that period. It took a good couple of weeks for me to get my head on the straight and narrow and just go, swallow it. We're in it. Let's get through it. Let's get my guns back. There's so many rabbit holes we could go down with it, and the effects it's had on my kids, the trajectory of their life. I mean, I only got my daughter, my 18-year-old, her first year this Christmas. My other daughter's gone to Christchurch. She's not really into the outdoors as much as she was. She was getting right into it too. Would would their life be different now? Would they be more into their hunting? Would they have had their licenses already? A lot of questions I ask, because it doesn't just affect me. It affected me, my employer, because I couldn't. He had to figure out how to make me do the job without causing me to be around firearms. It affected.
So it would have affected your work,
Oh,
losing your license.
100%. I was managing a little farm that the farm had in town. Like, we had 10 hectares in town. And I mean, I remember a time I had to ring the boss and say, "Far out, there's a sick deer. It needs a bullet. It's got yonis. It needed to go." Yeah, I had to call him up. He had to drive in, 20 minutes away, shoot this deer, and it was just like, it was really hard, eh? And you know, I felt like I was a burden on everyone on the farm for that reason. But and like I say, I felt like I was causing them to not get help, because the word started to trickle, as it does, and it was just like, shit. So this has to stop.
Well, it's a big part of your identity that was taken very abruptly. And I think people who don't live the lifestyle you were living, even myself, like I grew up in Auckland, like suburb, like it's hard to understand that for people who A, don't have a firearms license, B, have never been into hunting, C, have never lived and worked on a farm where it's actually required as part of your job.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of people, especially in New Zealand, that will understand it, but I'd say there'll also be people listening to this that probably think, "Oh, they took his guns, boo-hoo." But
Yeah.
it's actually a part of your identity that someone turned up to your house and took, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, even if I didn't have the job on the farm, it still would have been, there was no empathy towards a person that's struggling with a mental health crisis. That was the worst thing. The way it was managed was horrendous. This whole legislation around, being fit and proper, it's not a new one. It's just all of a
No.
sudden got over enforced because of Christchurch. And it was dealt with really poorly. And it has gotten better. And with the work we're doing and the relationship I've built with the Firearms Safety Authority, things are getting better, and there are options now which weren't available to me. So, yeah, we'll go into those in a sec. But yeah, it's 100% better than it was. And I know people still throw stones at the Firearms Safety Authority as still an arm of the police, but it is still way better than it was when I got dealt, and hundreds of other people did. But the problem is those stories are still flooding through. And I'll see it on the internet when someone puts up a post about, I've got a friend who's on a whether it's a rural page or whatever, friends struggling, but they won't get help because they don't want to lose their license. And people are like, do not go to the doctor, you'll lose everything. And I just look at that, it's like, you are now creating a bigger problem than the problem
Yep.
itself. It is a problem,
Yep.
and there is a lot of misconception and misunderstanding of what's going on. But that comment right there, the amount of hundreds of thousands of people that could potentially see it will now not get help nationally and internationally. It's not just confined to here, and everyone's using Aussie as an example, and everyone's they want to take all their guns. They do not want to take all their guns. The government couldn't afford to take all their guns, and the country would go broke, and all these people that want us to lose our guns need to realize it's going to cost them hundreds and thousands in taxes to continue the pest control management and everything else that needs to be done with firearms and the job that hunters do. So it's never going to get taken. And I've spoken firsthand to a lot of officials, and they do not want to take our guns. It's actually the opposite. They're trying to get more people licensed.
Well, that's it. And I see a lot of, I guess, content and promotion around getting the next generation into shooting and hunting. And I think they're obviously trying to do it in a manner that adheres to public safety.
Yeah.
And at the time they revoked your license, again, I go back to it being on the back, even though it was completely unfair, it was on the back of one of New Zealand's worst, if not the worst, terrorist attack, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I personally think it's amazing that you could have, and you said it before, you could have taken the road of fuck the police, basically, gone sour about it and done what I actually see quite commonly across shooting forums and things like that, which is it's us against them.
Yeah.
Like I was a member of a pistol club when the Christchurch shooting happened, and the police closed it down. My understanding, sorry, is that the police closed it down. I stayed away from the politics of it. But that was an awesome part of my life that I really enjoyed, and I could have carried it on in other clubs, but at the time, I feel like they made a lot of snap judgments without a whole lot of planning and thought. It appears now through the work you're doing and the stuff you're communicating, that they've actually taken a step back and created some really good systems and this whole entity to manage it.
They're definitely a lot stricter on firearms license holders.
Yeah.
And they've got to let the rest of the country know they're trying to keep them safe, which I get. If you lose your license because you were poaching, cool, you're a dickhead. Don't poach.
Yep.
Don't break the law.
Yep.
If you're going to go speeding and drink driving and you lose your firearms, don't ring me. I don't care. You're an idiot.
Yep.
That's your own battle. The only issue I have is taking people's firearms for mental health is stopping a demographic of people, good, hardworking, law-abiding citizens that are holding this country afloat, is stopping them from seeking help. Okay, so my ultimate goal with everything I'm doing with mental hunts is to get people back to the support, get the trust back with the authorities, and get the facts put in front of them about the legislation, their rights, what they can and can't do, and how they can mitigate losing their license. It is a very delicate situation, and I see that now. And there's got to be rules, there's got to be laws, there's got to be legislation, and they need to have the ability to take firearms off people that need them taken off, and there are a lot of them. You and me hang around really good people, so we don't see that. As an officer, they see all the idiots, so they need to have those powers in place to get it. I understand that, but unfortunately, a lot of us got dealt a bad card. A big one now, and it's something I do push for a lot of people, is the self-surrender option. And people are like, well, I shouldn't have to surrender. But it's like, hang on, when you're in a mental health crisis, and everyone says, when you're in a really early stage and you're having a bad week, going hunting's awesome. It's the best thing for you. But when you decline even more and you're in a really bad state and you may be having suicidal thoughts and your partner's broken up with you and they're sleeping with someone else and all this, hunting sucks. So if you really need to get help, don't let that firearm stop you. Self-surrender, give it to the authorities. You're then in control. You can focus on your own life. You can focus on yourself. And when you're fit and you're feeling better and you just think, shit, I want to go hunting, reapply. Tell them what's going on. Tell them you've been seeing a counselor. Tell them your mental health was up. You're now on medication. You got systems in place. They'll go, sweet, tick, 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 tick. This guy's on. This guy's fit and proper. He's doing all the right things. And it is all case by case now, whereas before it was just a blanket. Guns, take him. I hit up a reporter who is connected through TV, and I was trying to get some airtime, trying to connect with the TV reporters. And I said, have you got any connections you might be able to put me forward to? And she ripped shit out of me. And I was just like, what? And she goes, if someone's mentally unstable, they shouldn't have a gun. And I'm like, well, that's the exact ignorance I'm trying to change, because it's not like that, at all.
It's interesting. And you said, obviously it is case by case. And that's a really important thing that came out of your podcast with Kendra and I've forgotten the bloke's name.
Mike McRae.
Yeah, Mike. And they made quite a point that it is a case by case basis and they address it differently, but they also acknowledge that they do have to have that power, that when someone shouldn't have a firearm, because of they're unwell, they need to be able to have the power to take them. So your sort of suggestion of the self-surrender is one that I think is really worth considering. And I'm pretty open about my own mental health on here, but also just in general with people. And I can hand on heart say that even in the absolute worst and darkest times of my life, I've never even thought about my guns. They've never been...
No, me neither.
All I've thought is what you've just said. I'm too tired and wrecked to even go for a big hike or a walk. I'm sure there are people that do take that route, but it's just never been a consideration to me. So for me, and I'm guessing like you, to have my guns taken, it would be a shock and I just wouldn't understand it. But they have to have that power for the people that are really a risk to themselves or other people.
Obviously that situation changes a little bit if it's your career and you're a pest controller or something. And this is something I'm trying to push and get some sort of work license for people that they can operate firearms between the hours of such and such, but they've got to store them elsewhere. Why is that not an option? Drink drivers can kill people and get a work license. It's like, what the actual? So yeah, it's definitely come a long way. That self-surrender option, if it was around when I had it and had that situation, I would have 100% taken it, because when you're self-surrender, you're a non-license holder. That's it. So you can still shoot a firearms under supervision. So I could still work on the farm and do my job. Might have been a bit different when I went into town. I couldn't take a rifle with me, but I could still do a lot of the tasks needed, euthanize cows or whatever needed to be done. But by not having that option, I couldn't do anything.
So it's quite a different status, I guess, to being revoked, where you have to stay away from guns.
Revoked is a road you do not want to go down. So if you can manage it and control it and don't get it to that state, if you've got the money and you want to take it to court, go your hardest. I'm as broke as shit. I was never going to court. I just had to take it on the chin and go, I've been screwed. I could have taken it to court and I could have won, no hassles at all. But I don't have the money, because you don't get reimbursed when you win. You just go, okay, you win.
Yeah.
There's no financial gain to it, which there should be if you're going to be burdened. But anyway, that's another conversation, another rabbit hole.
So jumping back to, I think, 2022 we were at, your license arrives back in the mail out of the blue. That was obviously a good but frustrating day for you. What did life look like, I guess, back to work, normal? I mean, you kept working the whole way through. You climbed Corner Peak 53 times in a row. And that was something, if you look up the Mental Hunts YouTube channel, this is a video that I think is well worth, actually all your videos are well worth a watch. Your content is amazing, but I found this one just really inspiring, and it was another example of turning something that had happened to you, which you could have gone down that really dark, sour, hateful road, into something that actually became so positive, and I think even exceeded your expectations with this particular campaign.
I've always been in the construction industry, other than those little stints of, I think it's a bit to do with my depression. I get unsettled. I've got to try something else. And I love trying new shit. So I got into the farming. I got into the CrossFit. But building is where it's at. After I got my license back, I did get back onto the tools, and I ended up working for a company, Dunlop Builders, building architectural homes, beautiful houses in Wānaka, and yeah, loved it. And there was a bit of talk around mates in construction, which is a mental health thing, but they weren't in the southern region. And I'm all for education around mental health. So, and I just got this idea, and the construction industry has the highest suicide rate out of any industry,
Yeah.
even higher than rural. I mean, obviously there's a lot more construction workers, so of course it's going to be higher. But and I dug into the data, and 53 people a year on average were taking their life to suicide, which is essentially one person a week. So yeah, I come up with this idea. I was climbing Corner Peak in my own time, and I loved it. And I just thought, the feeling I used to get up there just was so cool. And I thought, people need to feel this experience. And yeah, it grew into this campaign of climbing Corner Peak 53 times. And I thought, I didn't want to make it a fundraiser, because a lot of people's mental health issues, including my own, is a financial burden as well. So it's a contradiction to me to ask people to give me money for nothing for mental health reasons, when majority of mental health issues are coming from financial battles and relationship stuff. But so yeah, I didn't make it a fundraiser, but I ended up getting tradies involved, and I campaigned to get tradies to sponsor days and climb with me on those days. And yeah, they come in their droves. It was I think in the end there was about 330 people climbed over the whole.
And how big is the climb? Tell me about Corner Peak. It's not a small climb, is it?
No, it's 1,600 meters elevation, 1,683, but you climb about 1,750 meters elevation. It's quite a big, steep climb, especially at the start. And then it's quite scrambly. So it's not your average, it's not like Mount Roy where you just walk up a farm track. It is a pretty intense climb for, it'd be above average. Yeah, so you climb about 1,700. It's about a 19K round trip for the day.
Yep.
But the view at
so it's a day trip.
Oh yeah. We'd leave at 4:30 in the morning. We'd do the first part in the dark, which was the steepest part. So there was a little bit of a method in that madness. And it was the coolest part of the day. And when people if they watch that episode, that video, it's a film Ned Brannigan made for us, and it was put together for the Mountain Film Festival, and won quite a few awards, traveled the country with the Mountain Film Festival. So it was a really good film that he put together. I take no credit for that editing, and it was all Ned Brannigan. He's amazing.
It's an amazing watch. It's called Turn the Corner for anyone looking for it on YouTube.
So if anyone watches that, you'll see a lot of the tradies that came up were wearing camo. So hence what we talk about. And I'd already been working in the back of my mind on this firearms stuff just quietly, because I was scared to work on it. And the conversation started coming up about firearms. But I'm scared I'm going to lose my license. And then I'm like, well, I am kind of working on this, but we're not that, nothing was happening. But then I started making phone calls after Turn the Corner, because before that I was a nobody. I was just a guy ringing up asking about firearms. No, don't know. All of a sudden, after climbing a mountain 53 times and doing a few newspaper articles, you end up being an advocate, and you have a voice. It's like, what the? Yeah, I started getting a bit more results, and then I ended up getting onto Kendra at the Firearms Safety Authority. It wasn't long after that.
So they must have been quite newly established then, right?
Very newly established. Kendra had only had her job in the partnership side and holding the mental wellness portfolio for 2 weeks when I got hold of her. So that's how much phone calls I was making. Like, there's a position, bag, I found it. And I've got that connection with her, and we've had it ever since. And you've obviously seen the podcast and the frequently asked questions we've done on the YouTube channel, just to get some clarity. Whether I agree with any of them, it's so people can get the facts more so There's a lot of them I don't agree with, but they are the rules.
The one big thing I took away from, and I forget the name of it, your podcast episode where you took them out for a hunt and you sat on the the front porch of that hut and had a really sort of quite in-depth chat, actually quite similar to what we're talking about now,
Yeah.
the what you experienced and went through. And the thing I noticed was that they didn't judge, they sat there and listened to every word you had to say, and vice versa. And it was just a really, I think, meaningful conversation from two slightly different points of view that found a lot of commonality throughout the chat.
Yeah.
And even though at points from both sides you sort of held your ground and had some sort of, you didn't butt heads, but it was like you had an obvious differing of opinions on certain things, there was still respect there. And to me, that came across as just being such a contrast to the years before when the police turned up at your house and took all your guns, like it's.
And to this day, the officer that actually took my guns, I catch up with him and see him all the time at the supermarket, have a good
You
chat.
do, okay.
I got I used to be in the fire brigade. I know what those guys and girls have to deal with. It's horrible. So I get they're enforcers. He enforced. That's his job. I didn't blame him for it, but the whole system as a whole was fucked, and it needed something to happen. And the firearm safety, I don't care what anyone says, it's a good thing. You've got to have someone managing this stuff.
Yep, I
But what
agree.
they do need to do is separate from the police. That's my opinion. Some people
Yep.
will disagree, but they need to be separate. They need to be the regulators, and the police need to be the enforcers. Well,
that's what they are, right?
Exactly. And it just like our road and transport, you go there for your licensing and everything else, but the police enforce it if you're doing the wrong things. It needs to be a very similar situation. Police are always going to be involved in firearms. It's just the way of life. It's the way it's going to be. Let's deal with it. The legislation that no one's ever read when they've got their firearms license already states to own a firearms, you need to abide by New Zealand law. So anyone coming to me saying I lost my license because I was speeding, that's because you broke the law. That's why. So, it is a privilege. They now state it as a privilege to own a firearms, not a right. And I tend to agree, we are living in a pretty lucky country where we can still get a firearms and just go walk down the road on the side of the highway with our rifle in our hand and cross over a fence. It's not against the law. Some places you'd probably have the armed squad.
You wouldn't do it in Auckland City, but
we are pretty lucky, really, with what we've got. And like I said, we need to have this law about mental health, but it just needs to be a lot more managed. And it is, like I said, that case by case was never happening. It was a blanket. Oh, mental health, bang, gone. And this nurse that said to me, by law, he has to do that, was wrong, completely wrong. He was wrong. He'd misread something, because it's still not that, and it never has been the law. To be deemed fit and proper, they need to consider, that's it, if your status is fit and proper. And that just comes down with asking some more questions. Another really good one for people to know is, like, if you have a friend that's struggling or you're struggling, I will go to the friend that's struggling. If I had a friend that was struggling, I'd sort of try and encourage him to get help. And they're like, no, I'm not going to the doctor. I'll take my guns. I'd say, hey, man, how about you store all your firearms at my house? Remove that means, for starters. So I'll look after the firearms. I don't have to register them until I've had them for over 30 days. So there's no issue there. And who cares? I'll register them in 30 days. And in the meantime, I'll suggest maybe taking him to the doctor and whatever. If that doctor or GP or that nurse or whatever asks them if they have a firearms license, which they'll probably know, they might ask some questions about it. They'll go, well, yeah, I have, but a mate stored them for me at the moment, just to, it's part of my responsibility as a firearms license holder in times like this. They're probably not going to notify, because straight away they've considered the situation, and they're going to go, well, no, you've done all the right things. And this has happened just recently to someone I know.
Regardless of, it has happened.
Yeah, and they went to the doctor, and the doctor asked him, he says, oh, my mate's got my keys to my safe. And he said, oh, that was my next question, because if you hadn't done anything about it, I might have had to have them removed.
And even if it does escalate, that is the best first step you can make to show that you've thought and considered your firearms license and the status of your firearms. It's whether it does get reported or carried on, whatever, I think from the point of view of the safety authority considering your situation, if the first step was that you were conscious enough to A, know you needed to go and get some help, but B, followed that, I guess, mantra of being a responsible firearms owner and made that call on your own accord, I think that's only going to play in your favor regardless, right?
100% it is. Yeah. There's a misconception about the whole situation that, you know, if you tell someone that you've put your gun somewhere else, you're admitting a big problem. But and that's going to admit guilt that you're going to have your guns taken. But it's not. It's actively showing you're being proactive. There are a lot of myths around this whole situation, and I want to hit another myth on the head right now and clear it up 100%. The big one that I get a lot of is the medication. If you've been on medication or if you are on medication, you're 100% going to lose your license. Well, that is so incorrect. It's not funny. And I'm a prime example of that with when I got my license revoked, I got on medication or back on medication,
Yep.
and I got my license back while on medication. I am still on medication and I will continue to take medication, but I will make sure any paperwork I fill out or renewals, I will inform them. You need to be transparent about it. If you're going to lie and they find out, there's an instant red flag. If you say, no, I've never had a mental health crisis, and they've got a record right in front of them because they've been to the doctor, that's not going to look good. If you say, yeah, I've had a bit of a crisis, and they'll ask a few questions, how do you manage it? What do you do? They'll go, cool, tick, 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 job done. I had a young fella come to me at the Seeker show, and I tell this story a lot because these are the ones this is just one of many I'm starting to get now. He come to me and he says, hey man, I want to thank you because all this time I've had no license, and I've struggled really badly with PTSD, and I'm on medication, and all my mates have told me I'm never going to get my license. He said, I watched that episode with you and Kendra and Mike, the one you were talking about. And he said, I decided to have a go. So he applied for his license, had to get a letter from his GP because he disclosed his mental health issues, his PTSD, and filled out the paperwork, got the letter from his GP. They got to ask a few more questions, what medications he's on and so forth. And he said it was the easiest thing he's ever done. He got his license, no hassles at all. All because he was transparent and told the truth and told him what he was doing and told him what he does to look after himself, knows to go get counseling when he needs it or whatever. And this is what's happening now. It is case by case. And if someone tells you that they lost their license because of their mental health, whatever, you got to remember they're probably only telling you a portion of their story. You know, the authorities, the police will know the facts. And, you know, I'm not saying people are going to lie to you, but, you know, get your facts right before you go blurting their story to others and saying, don't do this, don't do that. Because I've spent the last 5 years trying to get answers and I'm getting them. And I went up to Wellington to meet with Kendra one day, and I went to the police station, the wrong police station, trying to find where her office was. Long story. But while I was in there, they brought the arms lady out and she was talking to me. And while I was there, an older guy come next to me, and she goes, oh, just a moment, I'll just help this guy. I said, yes, sweet. And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm just inquiring about a firearms license. She goes, okay, yeah, cool, no worries. Yeah, what were you after? And he goes, well, she goes, do you need it for a hunting rifle, pistol, or, you know, what are you actually after? What are you wanting it for? And he goes, what on earth would I do with a rifle? She goes, well, what on earth would you do with a firearms license? Like,
Yeah.
And straight up right there, then on that moment, I was like, this is why we've got the law. This is why we've got the legislation like it is. It is delicate, and there are they need to be able to find ways to manage this, and it has to be done. But people need to understand it is getting better. And if you are dealt a pretty unfair card, it's probably a really good reason for it.
I believe there's a lot of people that shouldn't have firearms or firearms licenses. And that's probably an unpopular opinion.
And that's got nothing to do with mental health.
There was a guy on my...
No, that's got nothing to do with mental health issues either.
No, there was a guy on my firearms course actually who said he wanted them for home defense. And I looked at the arms officer and looked at him, and we all looked at each other, and everyone, there was just this unspoken, you are never getting a license. Again, every situation's different, but I asked my psychologist once, would you ever tell the police that I shouldn't have my firearms or my firearms license, knowing everything you know about me, and the good, the bad? And she kind of laughed actually and was like, of course not. Like, there's absolutely no reason. You're one of the most responsible people I know, and you probably overanalyze how much help you need sometimes. And But that said, I'm sure it's different for other people.
Someone going in like yourself, going in to get help is a bloody big deal, especially the very first time. It was the hardest decision I'd ever had to make in my life, and now I find it really easy. And, to punish someone for taking that step, firearms license holders going to get help for their mental health should be rewarded. You should get a pat on the back,
Mhm.
a free coffee down the road, and a Happy Meal down the McDonald's or something for your reward.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be getting punished by any means,
No.
but, people I would like to hope over time, very little people will be revoked for mental health
Yes.
crises. There will still be, because
Yeah.
some people are in a bad state. If you're on psychotic medication, or if you're, diagnosed with schizophrenia or something along those lines, yeah, there's probably medical issues, and that's not the only thing it's gonna affect. So you sort of come to terms with those things, but for the average Joe just having a bad time, marriage breakup, or financial crisis, the farm's not doing well, the farm's just been hit by a cyclone, all these things that you need to just get help, should not be getting punished for doing so. It's borderline, to me, discrimination for a demographic of people.
The big thing to promote is firearms license holders talking to each other and, when needed, if needed, looking after their friends' guns for them, or helping them do the self surrender, and avoiding that whole the net the harder side of it, the revocation.
Yeah. And that whole storing your guns for someone else, people need to also realize it is a responsibility, because they come to you and say, "Hey, I'm going hunting. Can I grab my guns?" It's like, "Oh, can
Mm,
I come with you?"
yeah.
Like, there's a way you're gonna need to manage that then. So it is a responsibility, bear that in mind, but, it's not a hard one. It's
No, and part of the we've spoken about this, and it's something we may or may not dive into this episode, but the education around mental health for people that have a firearms license needs to increase drastically.
Yeah, it definitely does, and this survey, when people see it, will see that it is something needed. And I will just dive in very quickly about that and say we are working on that. We are developing a mental health training program, and it is specifically for firearms license holders in rural communities specifically. It's going to be short, and it's going to be just an introduction into it and give people the tools, but ultimately trying to educate on the legislation more so. It will be the first in the country. It will be the first probably in the world that is combined firearms and mental health training together, but it needs to be done. People with firearms need to be educated on how to look after each other, how to manage each other, how to support themselves, what they need to do to look after themselves, what the facts are over the myths. So hopefully over time, when we get this program out, which is coming soon, those people that do the course will hopefully over time flood out these keyboard warriors on the internet and shut them down with the facts, because that's what we need to get rid
Yep.
of, because those people right there are the ones causing the problem, because it is incorrect. You will not always lose your firearms license. You can be in control of your own destiny through self surrender. You can get and when you surrender your firearms, you don't even have to say why you're surrendering it. Obviously, when you get it back, you do need to give information, but that's easy. Get the paperwork, get the letter from the GP. We've already got the vetting is already wads of paper now anyway. So what's another page and another appointment? So just do it. If you
Mm,
really want your license, you will do it, and you won't fight the authorities. I work in a way that I actually work with the authorities. I don't agree with them all the time. I will throw stones at them all the time personally, but I don't throw stones at them on a social level, because it's not how we're going to get change. And we are creating more change. There's more things we're working on. Even education to health practitioners is a big one. This is another rabbit hole.
yeah.
Education to police, how to show a little bit more empathy for a mental health crisis over someone who's, you know, beating up his wife. Two different scenarios. Be
Mm,
nice to the person, treat them nicely, because it's a dark day. Even getting a little bit extra time to deal over. At the moment, it's 28 days to come back to the authorities with responses. Like, when you're in a crisis, you need to manage yourself first, and the last thing you're worrying
yep.
about is that firearms at that moment until it's gone. So trying to get that extended, trying to work on work licenses. So there's a massive amount of work I am doing in the background, that I obviously don't. I don't throw it all through social media. I'm not out to throw stones at organisations or government. I have set this up as a charity because I'm not out to do this for a profit. I'm not trying to make money. I am trying to create serious physical change. I thought doing it as a charity, I could at least apply for funding because I am doing the government's job of fixing their fucker. So I think it's only fair that they could help fund this and support me through this. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Turns
Yeah.
out getting funding for developing a program has been really hard. So I'm putting a lot of my own money in, fundraising our own money. We're just about over the line. This mental health training program too that I'm talking about, and I think we will catch up and talk about it more when I've got it on the ground. I'm not just doing it on my own. I've put together an advisory group which consists of the NZDA, Colfo, Firearms Safety Authority, Catherine Wright, which is one of my podcasts, a rural counsellor who specifically works on rural communities, Canterbury Suicide Prevention Postvention Coordinator, and also the trust that I've got developing the program for me, the mental health component. So we've just about got our first draft, which we're now going to start intertwining the legislation to, and hopefully we can start piloting that in the very near future and start getting the facts out. I'm going around the country presenting at the NZDAs already, just because they're requesting it. So I want to go and present.
I've heard your one in Auckland was really well received.
Yeah. The guys in Auckland NZDA was awesome. Yeah, there was a big crowd there. I was actually really surprised how many turned out. And I just did one in Waimate, which I don't know whether you know Waimate, but it's a pretty rural community, very stoic, sort of typical southern sort of man. It wasn't a man-only event, but there was over 30 guys that turned out to this meeting. I mean, normally they have about 15 people turn up. They were blown away with how many came. So although people aren't talking about mental health, they want to know about it. People are still just flying under the radar, but they want answers. So if we can get those answers to them, I'm not connected with any organisation that I'm going to dob you in about anything because I don't want to do that. If your life's at risk, it's my obligation. It's your obligation. It's everyone's obligation to look out for. It's not just the police and the health practitioners to look after. It's every single person has the obligation to keep everyone safe if someone's having a crisis. It's just the fact of life. Nothing's changed there. It's just got over enforced thanks to our Prime Minister at the time and done very, very poorly. And there's a lot of scraping up to do and getting things back on track. And I just read the new suicide, I can't remember what it was, the suicide plan for between now and 2036 or whatever.
It was released last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the government's goal to get suicide to zero. Well, what a crock of shit. We're never going to get suicide to zero. I don't, it's such an unrealistic goal, and I'm under no illusion that we are going to get suicide rates to zero, but we sure as hell can bring that down from 600. If we could get it down to 400, shit, that's a win. Get it down to 500, that's a win. But we're never going to get it zero. I mean, this is not a new thing, but we need to take the power out of the word suicide. All this crap of can't talk about suicide with youth. You can't talk about suicide on the media and the news because it's going to trigger people. What a crock of shit. We need to take the power out of it. Anyone taking the word suicide out of things and scared to talk about it, they're creating the stigma. We need to embrace the word. We need to educate on it, and we need to take that power out of it that it's now currently got because it's the forbidden, and educate on it. Like hiding around it and tiptoeing around it's not going to fix the issue. I am currently right this very moments have just recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I've gone back to my counsellor, and I don't mind telling anyone. Yeah, I've got a few life things going on. But it's just like when you go to the physio, when your body breaks down. I'm not embarrassed by it. It's great. And guess what? I'm on medication. And guess what? My counsellor's an ex-police officer. Am I scared about losing my firearms? Absolutely not. Firstly, because I know the system and I know the options and I know the legislation inside out now. And the more we can teach people, the more they're going to go, well, I know what I need to do to fix this problem. So I'm going to go get help, or go talk to my mate, and my mate that's got a clearer head. And when you're in that dark space, it is really hard to make any decision, let alone sitting there and going, I might store my firearms at my friend's house and go get help. That's never. So this is where the education piece is going to come in, to educate how to see the signs in your friends, how to relate, and then how to respond. And if it is a really scary answer, know what to do. 111. Fuck the guns. Help the guy. Help the girl. whoever it
Mm,
is.
mm.
They need help. Firearms are the last things they're going to worry about if they're at that stage of their life.
Just just to put some context around this portion of the conversation, all the work you're doing, all the everything we've just talked about for the last quarter of an hour, I guess, falls under your banner of Mental Hunts, which is a brand and charity you've set up. And just touching back on your Turn the Corner campaign, correct me if I'm wrong, you did the 53 climbs up Corner Peak, and with each day that went on, you had more and more people joining you, mostly tradies. You noted before a lot of them were wearing camo, which touches back on the very start of the conversation where you said so many of the tradies in your area are hunters or probably come from a family with hunters in it. You started, I know in the sort of the movie of it, you mentioned that conversations around mental health on these walks every day, while they weren't a huge target of the campaign, they just naturally started occurring. And was that sort of the birth of you knowing that mental hunts really had some legs and it was going to be something that was really meaningful and worth pursuing?
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely seen the positives behind sharing vulnerability. And
Yeah.
I've got no shame in talking about my personal life. I don't really care at all if it helps one person. I know I've saved quite a few people's lives just from them hearing my story. And I've got people that I heard their stories that have saved my life in the past. So I know the power of it. I had a lot of people say to me, "What are you doing for your support? What are you doing to support you, through this whole campaign? You're listening to all these stories." So I've got 53 days. Every single day, I've got a 6-hour counseling session. What else do I
Mm,
need?
mm,
I'm out in the hill and we're
yeah.
talking. And I didn't, like I said on the film, I don't have all the answers. And I was learning things from all sorts of people, different tools and different things other people did. And the more you communicate with people, it's not a sign of weakness. Um, like if you hurt your ankle, you go to a physio, it doesn't do a good job. You keep talking to people till you find the right. Oh, why don't you try this physio? I use him; he's awesome. Oh, I use her; she's a great master. So you keep experimenting, and that's through talking to people, not from
Mm,
getting onto a helpline for physios. It's from talking and communicating with your mates and
yeah.
getting the answers. And then finally you find a specialist that's really, really good and can actually give you what you need. And it's no different
Mm,
from mental health, though. A big thing I talk about on my presentations is first aid. We all get a first aid certificate for workplace and whatever else. And why do we have that? The reason we have a first aid certificate is if you fall over, you hurt yourself, I can put a band aid on you, wrap you up, call an ambulance and get you the professional help you need. I'm not expected to do surgery on you on the side of the road.
yeah.
CPR is just a means to keep you alive. You've then still got to go to hospital and get the machines and the professionals to keep an eye on you. Mental health's the same. All you need to understand with mental health crisis is you're not there to fix the person. You're just there to support them, be with them, go down the road with them, go on that journey with them. It could be long term, it could be short term, whatever it is, help them. You're just putting that band-aid on until you can get them to the professionals they need, whatever that is. If they're a firearms license holder, store their guns. If you know the legislation they don't, fill them in. Say there's going to be options. You're not just going to go and lose your license. A lot of people think they're going to walk into the doctors and they're going to lose their license. They're not. It's never going to happen like that, and it's getting better and better and better every day. But yeah, I'm a huge advocate for education around mental health, just like we do our first aid.
So for people who want to follow along with what you're doing, learn more, look after themselves and their mates, Mental Hunts is across all the social media channels. It's across YouTube, and you're using what I think is an awesome recipe of education, content, and you do your amazing podcasts that are usually partnered with hunting content or a
Mm.
video that sits alongside it, which is such a unique concept. And I think for your demographic and your target audience works perfectly. And then alongside that, you're working on the education program, you're partnering with all these organizations, the Firearms Safety Authority, to make sure that everything you're doing is done right. Is there any and it's a charity, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything else about mental hunts that people need to know at this point, um, that you consider an important part of your mission?
No, so the YouTube channel was sort of where it all sort of started. Thought we can get these messages out, and it's sort of grown into this. I wanted to develop this program because there was nothing. There's a big gap in the market. So yeah, they're definitely the ports of contact, and and Instagram's probably the main one I use. It's a love-hate relationship, but it's a
Yeah, I feel you.
necessity, and people use it, and it can get the message out far and wide for free. So that's why we use it. We do want to build our audience, and by no means is it about getting super famous. I'm not trying to be this big hunting icon because I'm learning hunting still. You know, I'm not a big
Yep.
hunting guide. I don't know everything about hunting. I just know the benefits of it, and I love it, just like everyone else. So that's why the hunting episodes just takes people out doing what we all enjoy, and you just have better conversations when you're on the hill. But there's so much to talk about in people's journeys and stories. That's why we do the podcast separate, to really tell their story. Trying to do that in a hunting episode, it'll just drag on. But we just touch on different points during the hunt.
I think it's awesome that you separate them. It's the way I look at it is you get to meet the people and then you get to see them hunting.
Yeah.
And when you get to see them hunting, you know them so well from the podcast. And some of your content it's quite heavy. Like there's been a couple of your videos that really impacted me, but in a good and meaningful
Mm.
way. And you're definitely going below the surface with everything you do, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of brave stories that we've had. We're actually currently working on a couple more episodes. So with mental hunts, the education side of it, like the training program we're developing, um, I'm putting that more into the charity side of things and creating
Yep.
funding and trying to get funding to subsidize like regions that once we get going. The hunting episodes, we do rely heavily on sponsorship, financial sponsorship. I'm not after free shit. If people want to throw free things at me, cool, but I'm not selling it for you. I will showcase it, but we're ultimately after people that have the same philosophy as us and believe in what we're trying to achieve. And so we do rely heavily on the funding to make those happen. Because I mean, they're tens of thousands of dollars to develop those episodes. They're not
Yeah.
cheap, but they're very meaningful and they get a lot of important messages out. The support we got on the last one was with Awesome Tents. They're a big support of
Oh, yes.
what
Yep.
we're doing, and by no means is this an advert for them, but I'm a huge advocate of giving people credit where it's deserved, and they really believe in what we're trying to achieve. Hence why they've got behind us. For me, it's not about free tents. It's not about selling the tents. It's not about any of that. It's about getting the messages out to people while out in the mountains.
And the best way to do that is actually, well, one of the best ways I've found is through collaboration with people who share your values. If that's a company or
Yeah,
when I built my other project, Eat What You Kill, the way I managed to do that, because I had no money for marketing, I didn't even really know anyone in the industry, but I found a couple of really awesome businesses and brands that were just like, yeah, how can we help? And I know you've done similar things with mental hunts.
yeah,
It's those collaborations. I think so many people are just out for themselves, but actually creating collaborations within an industry, I think just strengthens it and it pushes your message further and it just highlights good people doing good things.
yeah. I think we're just going to need one really big organization that will back us, and we'll be able to put out some real good content. The only thing stalling me on these next two episodes is just figuring out where I'm going to get the funds from. But I'll get
Yep.
it. I don't know how, through fundraising of our own. We've got a few funds there, but not much. We do it on a budget. I don't film these. I don't edit these. I got an editor and a videographer, Ned, who does it all, and he's so passionate about telling these stories as they are, and it just takes a. This comes back to what I learned from CrossFit. Let someone who knows their area work on that area. So it's a really good part that I can just go. What do you want me to say? Where do you want me to stand?
Yep.
What picture are you looking for here? And then we're away, and it just does its thing, and he does all that, and we just
Mm.
tweak it and turn it. So that helps me a lot, and get it out professionally because he does such an amazing job with those episodes. It's
Oh, it's awesome. It's cinematic. It's like watching a short film.
yeah,
It's a lot more than there's a lot of hunting content on YouTube. I watch a lot of it, and I really like all of it, but yours is quite elevated in regards to the quality of it.
there's some really good hunting shows out there, and I watch a lot of them, a lot of local ones too. But anyone can create a hunting episode, but try and chuck a story in there. Man, it's hard. It's it chucks a whole different element to it for us. And I've never been in this space, so it's as far as filming a hunting episode, it was just an idea I had, and it's just growing legs. So, but I love it. It's really enjoyable. But yeah.
And just before I move on to sort of the last section, I just wanted to make one very clear clarification for anyone out there who has A, got a firearms license, B, has a firearms license and is struggling with their mental health, C, doesn't have a firearms license but wants to go down that path and maybe has had struggles in the past. Just to be clear, the people they need to be talking to is the Firearms Safety Authority and not the police. Is that right?
Absolutely. There's no reason for contacting the police as a station for anything firearms related, even change of address, anything related to firearms, your licensing, renewals, all through the Firearms Safety Authority. They've got officers all over the country now from each region.
Okay.
And, I mean, there's well over 500 staff in the Firearms Safety Authority. If you do go to the police and they're giving you advice, I'd take it as a grain of salt, because they're still probably working on shit that we all went through. What they should be saying to you, and I know down here, if I go in there on the front counter, there's all the Firearms Safety Authority paperwork. They should be handing you a piece of paper and saying, ring this number, because they're not the ones dealing with it anymore. Okay, if we want to get technical, Firearms Safety Authority is an arm of the police still, and they still come under the umbrella. Their email is .police.gov, but they are an entity on their own space that hang off the back of the police station.
And if someone out there listening wants to support Mental Hunts, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Just follow, share, like, subscribe, and share as much as you can, because we just want the messages, the facts to get to people. That's the most important thing for me. In order for us to do that, obviously, is a financial thing. So we do fundraisers of our own. We sell these hats on the website. The website is going to get an overhaul real soon. There's a lot more resources and things we want to put in there, which is going to come after we've developed the program. We've currently got this collaboration going with First Light. You buy one of these hats, they're $100, and you go in the draw to win $3,000 worth of prizes. So I mean, that's a real quick fundraiser for us, and a really cool collaboration and from Crispy and First Light that have supported that. So 100% of that's going to go to us. None of it's going to anyone else. So there's little things like that. We're constantly doing I've got other little fundraisers coming up, and the local Rotary Club's doing one. So yeah.
I'll put links to all of this in the description everywhere I put this podcast as well, so people can find it. How do you look after your mental health these days? You've got a lot going on. What would be what's the top thing? You're probably going to say going hunting, but you're a father, you still work, you do your mental health. We've spoken on previous phone calls about how much work you do behind the scenes, actually, just to make people see an episode or an Instagram post, but they don't see the hours you spend on the phone, or the presentations you give, or the hours of editing that goes into the videos, and all the money to make it all work. I can tell you one way: you've surrounded yourself with awesome people. That's a very big difference back to the CrossFit days. But what's your top, I guess, strategy at the moment for making sure you stay as mentally well as you can as much of the time as possible?
I'm just trying to find there's a quote I've got here, and it something I saw the other day on social media. The quickest way to succeed is to start now and figure it out as you go. You can't learn to drive. You can't learn to drive a car when it's parked, and that's pretty much how I roll. I get these dreams, and I'm a doer. I'd rather try and fail than never try at all. Nothing changes if you don't make change. I know already I've helped a lot of people, so it's real positive. But yeah, it is a balance, and I'm still trying to find that balance. There's a massive amount of work going on the back end. Okay, we've created the social media and the YouTube channel. I'm not throwing out content every night like everyone else. And,
No.
This hunting episode, that hunting episode, like we're really struggling to get to the next one, just time and money. But ultimately, this training program is where it's at for me. And that will come back. That will, that'll start rolling soon, and we'll get more. I've already got 2 episodes on the go, potentially a third one, but yeah, it's just putting the dots together. So yes, I struggle a lot. I do have a lot of self-doubt. I have days where I just think, who the fuck am I to be telling everyone what they should be doing with their mental health? And then I get an email from someone that's really positive, and I'm like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing those days. So it makes the shit days worthwhile. I get a way more positive things coming out of this than my heart and soul is in this. This is something I want to do for a long, long time, probably for the rest of my life. But unfortunately, throwing plaster on the walls at the moment is paying the bills. And as much as that sucks, it pays bills. So that's what's getting me there. And like I said to you before, I got overwhelmed recently. Bit of family crisis, a few things going on, and all this shit just piling up, and not having good systems in place for myself, and went back to the doctor, the GP. Oh, sorry, not the GP. I went to the organised seeing my counsellor again, and yeah, I'm already at the point where it's like, well, let's just spread it out to maybe once a month, and yeah, I'm already feeling
Yeah.
better, and I've been accepted on a mentoring program for the governance side of things. So yeah, I'm way out of my depth as far as I didn't grow up. I quit school at 15, picked up a hammer. I've worked on building sites most of my life, and here I am working in the charity governance space, trying to figure it all out, as well as develop a mental health program and be a public speaker. And it's just so out of my realm. Computer work, sitting indoors, tapping on keyboards, not been my thing, but I'm loving learning more and more and more. There's so much technology out there, and we also create hunting episodes just to throw something else in the mix. So there is a hell of a lot going on when you start breaking it down. It's almost scary when I look at it like that, but yeah.
You're obviously very self-aware when it is one of those weeks where it's like, "Oh, I need to talk to someone this week," whether it's the counselor or not.
Yeah, totally. And I was never like that. I was so stubborn, pig-headed, couldn't get help. I was a typical stoic bloke, but just go down the pub and get pissed. But now, because I have got help, and the help gave me a chance to see the person I really am, and the happy of life, I now know when I'm not in that. And it's not always happy. I have shit days, I have sad days, but
No one's happy all the
I
time.
do know the difference between going down a bad rabbit hole as opposed to, I just got to get up tomorrow and start again. You know, it slowly creeps up on you, and then it kicks your ass if you're not ready for it. It's a lonely road when you're in that space. You could have all the support around you, and you still feel like you're on your own. So to have people educated around you to know how to help you, and the last thing you want is someone coming to you going, "Oh, what you need to do is you need to just do this, this, this." No, I don't. You just need to shut up and listen. Yeah.
I think it's also important to remember those hard weeks, months, even years, they don't last forever, and it's okay to feel like shit, and it's okay to not be functioning at 100%. I personally chase this idea of, happiness for so much of my life. And social media has a big part to play in it. It's like no one is happy all the time. No one is successful all the time. No one has a great relationship all the time, especially when you're going out on a limb, like in your case, where you're doing all this work that you don't actually have so much experience in, but it's driven by, in your own words, putting your heart and soul into it. I think in the long run, it's like it becomes a calling. And I think the work you're doing is amazing. And when you do launch the education side of it, I'd love to have you back on to go through that because, you talk about how you used to be a stoic man who would go down the pub and, medicate with probably more than one pint. I would imagine still now there's a lot of people who may eventually listen to this who are doing the same thing. And in the industries you're targeting and working in, I'd say it's still a very, despite all the work you're doing, despite all the stuff people are saying, I'd say there's still a big portion of people who are still of the mindset that they'll never ask for help.
Yeah.
And people like you doing the work you do are what will eventually start changing that and shifting that needle of bringing down statistics that are already way too high. And like you say, they're not going to get to zero, but moving them downwards is a good start.
Yeah. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. This is going to take years, years and years.
Mm.
But, as long as the needle's going down, that's a win as far as I'm concerned.
What would you, just as a final question, what would you say to someone who is stuck in that cycle of maybe medicating with alcohol or other substances, and they might be a firearms owner, they might not be, they're just not putting themselves in the right circles of support, not asking for the help, coming from someone who's been there? What would your advice be to them if you could say one thing to them?
Oh, it's really obvious to say go get help,
Yep.
but I also know how hard that is to do. Hanging down at the bar with the other bar flies are probably not the people you want to be around, but breaking those cycles, I don't really have the answer. I mean, I'm pretty strong-willed, and I'm not going to say to people you need to stop drinking, but I knew deep down I was drinking too much. And if someone is down drinking too much and they're smoking way too much, or they're doing whatever they're doing, they know what they've got to do, but you've just got to step up and do it, because it does get easier. It does get better. Yeah, it's going to be a road to get there, but nothing good in life is easy. You've got to work your ass off for anything good. No one's given handouts. The easy way is not the way. Be prepared for a rocky road, and there's a lot of ups and downs. But yeah, ultimately, go talk to someone. Go talk to your GP. That is the ultimate thing to do. But I also know it's also the hardest thing to do first time round.
And just actually reflecting on that question, I think maybe the answer is also there isn't one set answer for that person, but hopefully more conversations like this floating around the
Yeah.
cyberspace
Yep.
will start showing people that, hey, I was just like that guy, or, there's two dudes talking about quite openly about mental health, and that's probably going to start shifting the needle more than an answer to a question saying, "Oh, go see a psychologist."
Yeah, I always say at any of my presentations, and I will continue, I'm not a professional. I'm not a health practitioner. I don't have answers. I have a lived experience, and I'm living proof that you can get through it. And, I still manage it to this day, and I will manage it until the day that life decides it's all over. I'm not going to make that dumb decision though ever again. And I think it has way more power than an overeducated person with no common sense trying to tell people what they need to do. There's a lot of people out there in a similar situation to me, and they're the people we're going to get on board to help facilitate these programs, because for me that's way more important. We're not going to do role playing and fucking activities. It's going to be real conversation. Let's have a chat, open the room up. This is what you can do. This is what we thought. I'll learn along the way as well. I'm not going to be talking at people. We want to talk with people.
Well, mate, I appreciate this. Has actually been one of my favorite episodes so far. It's something that it's not been a lived experience of mine, but I think it's something that, especially for New Zealand, especially for New Zealand men, is just such an important. It's an important conversation we've just had, but what you're doing more so is so needed and so important. And I think it's almost, personally, I think firearms companies should feel obligated to invest in this sort of education and organization that you're building. I just,
Thanks.
I think it's going to be, I think you've got some really exciting stuff ahead that's going to help a lot of people. And I really appreciate your time and talking me through your experience, but also what has come of it.
Yeah, appreciate that, Tim. Yeah, no, at the end of the day, I think it's all going to be a win-win.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching it evolve.
Yeah, me too. I'm still figuring it out as I go, but yeah, I've got big
Well, that's the
targets.
exciting part,
I've got
right?
big targets, but yeah.
That's the exciting part. And I'll have you back on in the future to sort of have another catch up, because it's a conversation I want to continue.
Yeah, and it's going to forever evolve, and things are going to change. There's already talk of little things changing already in positive ways. So
Yes.
as they happen, we will update as much as we can. And yeah,
Awesome, mate. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
very good. Hey, thanks, Tim. Appreciate you.